All right, so part of your lesson today, after you finish lesson number 2, you're going to skip forward to Sprint lesson 4, and this is on page 63 in your red book. I'm going to kind of walk you through and show you kind of what they're wanting you to think as you're going through. So we're thinking in tenths, right? If we write as a fraction, we're thinking of 1 over 10 or a tenth. But if we're thinking in a decimal, we're thinking of the place values, right? We have our whole numbers here and our fractional values over here, which would be our decimals. This is our tenths place and our hundredths place. We're mostly going to be working with tenths on this sprint, so I wanted to show you kind of how it works. We have 1/10 here, so that means that we have 1 in our tenths place. We have nothing in our ones, so we would write this on our sprint as no whole numbers, right? But we have 1 out of those tenths. If we drew a picture of that, we'd have our little square and we'd have our 10 little pieces and we'd have 1 of those pieces filled in, right? Okay, so then what happens if we have 2/10? Well, same thing. We would just have 2 in that tenths place. So we would write that as 2/10. Same thing with 5. If we had 5 in our tenths place, we would have it as no whole numbers but 5 in that tenths place. So we'd write 0.05. All right, now let's think about what if it says something like, I'm just going to erase for a second. What if it says something like 10/10? What would 10/10 look like in the decimal place? Well, we know that if you have a group of 10, what does it do to that value? It actually shifts that value into the next place value, right? If I had 10 dimes, it would be the same as having 100 cents or $1, right? So it moves that into that whole group. And you know that if you have a number and the denominator and the numerator are the same, then you have all the pieces there. It's making that whole piece. You have 10 out of 10. So you have 1 whole and no tenths left because it's all grouped together into a whole. So you would write this as 1.0 because you have your 1 whole in your whole groups and there's no fraction pieces left. It's all complete. It is all there. Okay. Let's see. Now what happens if, say, we have 11/10? All right. So now hang on, this is an improper fraction, right? Because we have a numerator that's greater than our denominator. And how much greater is it? Like, we could do a number bond here and we could say, oh, okay, we've got 10/10. That's our 1 whole. And what could we number bond with that? Well, we've got to have 1 more tenth there. But we're not doing this as a fraction anymore or a mixed number. We want this as a decimal number. So how could we plug this number up here into our place value? Well, we know we have this 1 whole, so we'd say, all right, we have 1 whole there, and we have 1/10. So we've got to put that in the 10th place. So we have 1 in the 10th place. So really, we're going to write this as 1.1 or 1 decimal point 1/10. 1 in the 10th place. All right, let's do one more, then I think you might have it. Let's try 38/10. Okay, so this one's a little bit trickier because now we have another improper fraction, but we have 38. Now, if I did this as a number bond, I know that I would pull out how many wholes could I possibly pull out of this number. Well, if I count by tens, I know I have 38, right? So I could go 10, 20, 30, and I can't go 40 because that would be too much, right? So I have 3 groups of 10 in there. So I know I have 3 wholes in there. So I could put 3 wholes, and then what do I have left over? Well, I've already used up 30 of my 38, so I just have 8 left. So 8/10 left. So I could put that over here in tenths place, 3.8 would be my answer for that. Now I just want to kind of show you and visualize with you. So here was my 10 tenths, that was my one hole. Another 10 tenths was another hole. Another 10 tenths was another hole. There's my 3 holes. So 10, 20, 30, and I've got to bond it with an 8 tenth. So there's our 3 holes, and here's our 8 tenths. So 8 in the tenths. All right. Okay, good luck. On your assignment today, I want you to try and do 1 through 22, and then if you can do more, I want it to take about 10-15 minutes at the most. So if you do it really fast, just keep going and do the other side, 23 through 24, and finish the whole page if you can. All right. Okay, if you have any questions, bring it to our Zoom meeting with your teacher.